You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 184 with Christopher Wirth. Today, we're sharing a message of no quit living.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, Men of Abundance? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community. Today, we are talking with Christopher Wirth of No Quit Living. And I'll tell you what, call it what you want, irony, divine intervention, whatever it is, but it just so happens that this conversation, as you'll hear in our conversation here in just a minute, was take two. Because after over 180 episodes and several conversations recorded, I never lost one episode. Not one. Now, there were some that the audio just wasn't good and I couldn't salvage it. I just couldn't do anything with it. So we did have to take a take two. But on this one, I lost the audio. I just couldn't find our conversation, the conversation between Chris and I. And I'll tell you what, guys, several years ago, I would have been pissed off. I would have thrown a fit. I would have been worried. I would have had this just gut-wrenching feeling in my stomach, and I would have just cringed to contact Chris and say, hey, look, dude, I know we had this conversation. We had a conversation for your show as well. I was on your show, but I just can't find the episode. I can't find our conversation. Did you by chance record it? Well, I did make that call. I did contact him, and he said I didn't record it on my end. And sometimes another podcaster will record on their end. It just so happened that it just didn't happen. So there again, several years ago, that would have further tightened up the grip in my stomach, and I would have swallowed a giant frog and said, I'm sorry, we just lost the episode. Actually, I lost the episode. There is no we. But here I am today. I'm in a much calmer state. I'm in this mindset of abundance, not scarcity. I knew we would salvage it some way. We'd figure it out. And he just immediately replied back and said, don't worry about it. Stay positive. Let's set it up again. And that's what we did. And the second time was, if not as good, better than the first time. I'm absolutely sure of it. But there's several lessons to learn from this, especially for some of you out there who are thinking that if something like that had happened to you or anything similar of that would have happened to you, you would have just thrown a fit, lost your mind, had that, lost some sleep, the whole bit. You just got to relax. You just got to understand that stuff happens. And sometimes it's your fault. It was my fault. Somehow I lost that episode. I might have deleted it. I have no idea where it went. I might even find it on my computer someday. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is I couldn't find it and I didn't quit. And Chris wasn't about to let me quit. He just very quickly replied back and said, stay positive, brother. Don't worry about it. We'll set it up. We'll do it again. And that's exactly what we did. That's what you're getting today. You're getting a no-quit attitude, a positive abundance mindset from start to finish right here on this conversation. So other men are going to want to hear this conversation. Other women are going to want to hear this conversation. So don't be stingy with this information. Information is only power if it's shared. So make sure you share this conversation and all other conversations of Men of Abundance with others. Just share the website Men of Abundance, share it from your podcast player, whatever you got to do. Just share it with other people. And guys, if you're listening to this and you're not already a member of the Men of Abundance community on Facebook, there's only one reason why that should be the case. You're not on Facebook. And I totally respect that. I get that. But if you are on Facebook and you're not a member of the Men of Abundance community, you absolutely should be, so that you can continue these conversations with us over in the Men of Abundance community. It's a closed community. And as far as I can tell, the best I can do, it's only guys in there. So come on over and have that conversation that us guys need to have. You can get access by going to menofabundance.com, clicking on the Members Only tab at the top of the page, and request access. I have 3 quick questions that I ask each and every one of you, super simple, And you can answer them or not. It's totally up to you. I do prefer that you do, but if you don't, I don't deny access. And once I see your request and verify that you are a guy and that you don't have a joint account, because there's no joint accounts allowed, then I will grant you access. It's really that simple. All right, so let me introduce you to our featured guest today. Christopher J. Wirth is the president and founder of No Quit Living. No Quit Living is a training, speaking, and coaching company that works with individuals, teams, and corporations to help motivate and inspire them to be the best version of themselves. No Quit Living specializes in helping people not only understand, but maximize their success through accountability and self-accountability. Christopher is also the host of the top-ranked podcast on iTunes titled No Quit Living. Their number one goal is to help motivate people to never give up on themselves and their dreams and goals. No Quit Living will help you go for your greatness. Men of Abundance, it is my honor to introduce you to Christopher J. Wirth. Christopher, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great today. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Man, it is my pleasure. This is round 2. I don't know what in the world happened. We talked back in November after Evan Money introduced us, and I got to give a shout out to Evan real quick. We were just talking about that first degree of separation, or we're like 1.1, what is it? 1.0 or 0.01 degree.
Yeah.
Of separation from a lot of the people that we know, man, as we were just talking pre-show. But listen, man, back in November, we had a conversation. I'm sure it was a great conversation, but somehow, someway, after 180 episodes, I lost our conversation, our recorded conversation somewhere. So here we are, round 2, better than ever.
It's interesting. I'm launching episode number 100 next week, and we've had the same thing happen only one time, knock on wood. So I guess it happens to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all these things happen, and all we can do as abundant leaders is, chalk it up as a learning experience and drive on.
No way. Don't know what to do other than that.
Exactly. Hey, man, so before we get too much into our conversation, I want to start out with an attitude of gratitude. What do you have to be grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my 3 kids. They are my everything. They're why I do what I do. And the other thing is I'm grateful for the really amazing people I have in my corner.
And Chris, how would you describe yourself?
Do we have 2 hours or 3 hours, or what's the time limit here?
About 2 minutes.
I was on an interview yesterday, and the gentleman kept on calling or referring to me as Mr. No Quit and Mr. Accountability. And I would say the thing for me is just I love what I'm doing, and the reason I love what I'm doing is I just love helping people, and I'm so grateful for all the amazing people that have mentored me and helped me along the way. And my number one objective is to give back, and the whole MO for my company, No Quit Living, is just to motivate and inspire people to never give up on themselves, their goals, their dreams. And one of the things we spoke about back in November briefly, I believe, was the fact that in today's day and age and with the media, there's just the constant negativity. And I just want to be that person, that company, that place, that show where people come to and they know that they're going to get inspiring people that dealt with adversity and had their challenging story, and they kept on going when they had the opportunity to give up or give in, and they didn't.
Yeah, and I know we had that conversation, and I remember that as well. And it's extremely important to point out the fact that regardless of what we see in social media, in the media, on TV, radio, internet, there is so much more good and abundance in the world than all of those mediums allow us to believe. And that's another reason why I love your show. I love putting out Men of Abundance to prove without the benefit of a doubt, and you should know this by now if you're listening to our voices right now, guys, you should know that there is so much more good and abundance in the world than there is scarcity and evil. And we're just here to, share as much of it as we can with you.
No, I couldn't agree more.
So, we talked a little bit about, or I shared a little bit about what you're doing with No Quit Living. Absolutely love the concept, love what you're doing, love the guests, and everything that you have going on over there. Where did all that come from? How did that all get started?
It's a good story, good question, and I get asked quite often. And I've always been a big quote guy, and it was probably 4 or 5 years ago when I don't know if I was just having a rough day or a rough morning, but a quote came across my desk by Norman Vincent Peale, which is, "It's always too early to quit." And I don't know what it was specifically about that day, that morning, but it just stood out to me. I printed it out a couple times. I put it on my tack board. I think I might have taped it to my computer. And then it just was always in the back of my mind. And being a former college tennis player and college basketball player, I also coached AAU, high school, and college basketball for a while. So the whole concept of just not giving up in sports and in life really meant a lot to me. And I got certified as a speaker, trainer, and coach by the first ever John Maxwell certification program in 2011. And I selfishly did it actually to improve myself. At the time, I was coaching and training a lot of junior guys in my other business, and I was doing a lot of speaking in front of anywhere from 20, 30 people up to 3, 4, 500. And I just wanted to be the best version of myself. Fast forward a couple of years, and about a year or two ago, I started talking with a couple friends and started doing some coaching, created the company No Quit Living, and then this past April of 2017, we launched our No Quit Living podcast, and now we're a full-fledged company that, as our podcast, we also focus on speaking, training, and coaching. And for me, as I mentioned before, I've taken, I think, bits and pieces from my life, and I think I've taken things from every aspect of it, the good, the bad, and it's just my MO is in life, you're going to get hit. In life, you're going to get knocked down, and not to sound negative, but actually to be real with your audience and your listeners, is people in life are going to give up on you. And whether that's business, professional, personal, relationships, spouses, significant other, whatnot, people are going to give up on you. And the other component is people are going to disappoint you. And again, I don't want to be negative in any way, shape, or form, but the whole MO behind why we do what we do is you just can't give up on yourself. And when you get knocked down, you just got to get up. And when you have those people in your life or in your corner that maybe don't have your best interest, it's okay to get them off your bus. You know, one of the things that John Gordon talks about is energy vampires. And I think it's really important for people to get the people that aren't in their corner off the bus earlier so you get the right people in your corner. And as I mentioned earlier in my intro, is I'm just so fortunate at this point in my life to have some great people that have come into my life, and some of them completely unexpected have come in very quickly and had a really significant and positive impact on my life. And I'm just so grateful. And I just want to give back. And one of my monikers that I talk about often is paying it forward with zero expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to come back to that, paying it forward with zero expectations, especially in regard to relationships and stuff. But one thing I want to circle back to is one of the things that you kind of talked about, and it's uncomfortable to talk about, is those negative things, those things that happen to us. And I really believe that they happen for us, but it's all about mindset. It's one of the things that Norman talked about. You mentioned Norman Vincent Peale. He talked about quite often is using your words. Your words are very important, how you talk to yourself and the words that you use. So changing something from why this happened to me into why this happened for me. But it's important for us, I believe anyway, I want to have this conversation with you, to reflect on that. You know, when you're football players, they go back and they watch the prior games. Boxers, fighters, they go back and watch their prior fights to see kind of where they could have tweaked a few things, made things better, because it didn't go quite the way they wanted it to. It's important to do that in our minds and go back and reflect on some of those things the day prior, the conversation you had or the event that happened, and how can you make it better. And so many men and women out there are doing in our similar spaces, and they're just sharing all the good things, all the amazing things that happen in life, when we really do need to show, look, there's some stuff that happens in our life, and we're going to talk about that kick in the gut moment here in just a minute. And that's one of the reasons why I bring that up. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think positive mindset and a positive outlook and positive self-talk. And some people use the words affirmations, and some people talk about written versus saying it out loud, looking in the mirror. I think there's so many different ways you can take it. But I think to your comment, I couldn't agree more in the sense that it's not a question of will something happen to you that's challenging. It's a question of when. And then the most important question is, how do you react to it? And I've kind of created my own little quote, and I don't even know if it's really accurate as far as if I created it, but it's you can be bitter or you can be better, but you can't be both. And I remember the first time I heard something along those lines, and you said it, and I think you hit it on the head, is you have to take everything that's happened and make a positive out of it. Not why did this happen to me, but I'm glad it did because it's going to lead me to my next victory. And I think if you look at the most successful people in all walks of life, I don't care if it's business, sports, I don't care if it's an author, an actor. If you look at the most successful people in life, they have failed more often than everybody else, but they keep going and they never give up. I want to share one quote that I'm not 100% sure of the accuracy, but I read an article a couple months back where the actor Mark Ruffalo supposedly went on over 600 casting interviews before he got his first movie offer. And whether that's close to accurate or even half of it, it just really stood out to me when I saw it for the first time. And I said, wow, I said, he's one of the top actors in Hollywood today. And nobody would have known of him if he gave up after 5 attempts or 10 attempts or 20 attempts. But the reality is there were a couple hundred and he never gave up. And it's kind of what we think and we talk about with No Quit Living is some of the best successes in life have come after some of the most challenging times. But every single time that person or that company, that business, they got up and they kept going.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's many, many other scenarios like that. I'm trying to think of this actor's name who, goodness, he was the one who did Silence of the Lamb.
Jodie Foster.
He was, the guy. He was Hannibal.
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins. Anthony talked about people told him he would not be a top-rated actor. He would not be. And he used that negativity to move him forward. And then, of course, you shared with me on our last conversation, and I was watching it again today, a video with David Goggins, a Navy SEAL, and how his childhood was so negative and the way he grew up, 20 miles away from the headquarters of the KKK with the leader's son sitting two seats behind him in the class and calling him, names that we're not going to repeat here. And that has driven him to do the things that he does. Guys, sometimes we want to do things because we just want better in life, but sometimes we want to do things because we want to prove it to other people, and we use that negativity as a superpower. Whatever it is that lights that fire underneath you and really adds fuel to it, use it. But ultimately, I think you should be using it towards heading towards the good place. But if it takes the negative stuff to fuel you, then use that too. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's so funny you mentioned that. I've talked about that on quite a few episodes, directly and indirectly. And I think whether something horrific happens to you or just really bad luck or what have you, one of the things I think is it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to get upset. But what we talk about quite often is you need to then turn that whatever happened to you and have it motivate you to be the best version of yourself. Because I think everybody, it's just natural. You want to get even. You want to strike back, and you want to, somebody or a company or something did something to you, you want to immediately strike back. And I think that's only natural. But to your point, I think the best thing to do is to figure out how that's going to fuel you and drive you to your next biggest and best success. Because I think that's the best part about the whole no quit living attitude and all the stuff that you speak about with your amazing podcast. And I think the word abundance is just a perfect word in so many ways for not only what you talk about and what your guests talk about, but just the best way to be in life is it's not about a specific number or a specific dollar amount. It's about being abundant in whatever area or areas you want to be abundant in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I call it the 4 core: family, faith, finances, and fitness. And so at this point, Chris, I really want to kind of dig into that little kick in the gut moment that we kind of got started and alluded to earlier, because as we have already led up to it, the kick in the gut moment really is a driving factor for many of us. It either drives you to do better within yourself. So that, like David Goggins says, reading your own book and using that fuel, or the kick in the gut moment just kicks you down and keeps you down. I hate to see that. There was one thing I hate to see. I very seldom use the H word, but I hate seeing a man who is kicked down. I want them to use that kick in the gut moment to fuel them to move forward. So if you would, share that kick in the gut moment with us and really make us feel that.
Yeah, it's something that actually that happened recently, and it was definitely a kick in the gut. But there's a good at the end of the tunnel, if you say. But what I realized, and my kick in the gut, was that I had the wrong people in my corner, and I had the wrong people that were on my bus. And it's not, a casual friend or somebody, a neighbor down the street. It was people that I relied on for a lot of things. And it was people that candidly and honestly, I had given everything to, whether that was monetary, whether that was emotionally, whether that was with my attitude, my effort, my time. And I realized very quickly, not quickly enough in some ways, but I realized very quickly that it was not returned. And I realized that all the amazing things I was doing in my business were never going to really take off because I had these people that were holding me down. And it's not that they were bad people or negative people, and I don't wish anything bad on anybody, but it was really that kick in the moment where I realized that they didn't have my best interests. And they said they did, and they said that they were in my corner, and they said that they were there, but I realized that they weren't. And the good part about my story is that somebody came into my life, and I realized that that person was completely genuine, and that person brought positivity, support. And I realized when that person said to me, Chris, I'm in your corner, I knew that was honest. I knew it was real, and the actions have been just amazing. And so for me, that kick in the gut moment was tough because I had spent so much time, money, effort in the wrong relationships and giving to the wrong people. And again, I don't have anything against those people. I'm so grateful to those people because they have driven me to get the right people in my corner. And as I mentioned, someone in particular has come in, and it's amazing when you get the wrong people off and you get the right people on. And it's almost like the last 3 weeks of my life and my business career has literally just taken off in such a positive direction that it's impossible to think that there's a huge correlation between the two of them.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And so elaborate a little bit more on that enough is enough moment when this other individual came in and kind of just pointed some things out. Was there a conversation about that? How did that all come about?
Yeah, there was definitely conversation, and the interesting perspective is that this person's actions and comments and really truly showing me that they were in my corner, it magnified the fact that the other people that I kicked off the bus and left the bus were not. And it's interesting. It's in life. It's like when you go out to find the biggest client ever and you're just focusing on the sale or something like that. It rarely happens, if ever, as opposed to on the flip side, when you focus on being the best and doing the best that you can, all of a sudden these amazing things happen. And I think there was definitely a correlation between the fact that as I was realizing that this person really was in my corner, it magnified, as I said, the fact that the others weren't. And it wasn't a one specific moment where I said, wow, this is amazing. It was quite a few moments. And I just said, wow, I said, moving forward, I said, I need to make sure that I have the right people in my corner. But here's the other interesting perspective is I also realized that I need to be that positive person in other people's corners as well. So one of the things I don't talk about on my show is politics and religion, because you can start World War III. But what I do talk about is the religion of karma. And I really feel that this interaction over the last few weeks and month or two opened my eyes up to so many amazing things. But one of the best parts was what I talked about before, was the paying it forward concept with zero expectations. And now every day I go about, who can I help? How can I help that person? And more importantly, whose corner am I in? And in whose corner maybe do I need to show more so that I'm in, as opposed to the way I'm currently having. So it's so crazy in such a positive way how all this has just spiraled into such a positive force in not only my life, my business, but it's invigorated me for the rest of 2018 and beyond.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up again, because I was going to circle back to that, the pay it forward without expectations. I'm telling you guys, that sounds odd when you hear it. And I know many of you have heard it time and time again, especially if you've been listening to this show, because so many of the guys and the men and women that I've had on have mentioned in one way or another that they pay it forward without expectations. When we're talking about personal relationships, you give 100% to that relationship. It's not a 50-50. There's no 50-50 relationships, because if you do a 50-50, you're expecting something back, and you're only giving 50% of yourself towards that relationship, whether it's personal, professional, with your kids, it doesn't matter. But once you start shifting your mindset to that abundant mindset and truly adding value to other people, without expecting anything in return, something is going to come back every single time. This is my personal experience. I've experienced it on my own professional and personal life, and I've heard it time and time again from all of the people that I personally talk to, just like Chris.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because I could not agree more with that, in the sense that when you focus on doing it for all the right reasons, and you focus on the other person or the other business or the other company, and you do it with zero expectations back, I believe it comes back to you tenfold. Now, maybe it's not to you directly. Maybe it'll be to your kids or to your significant other or a friend or family member. But when you change that mindset and you say, okay, I want to help this person because I believe in him or her, or I want to help this business because I really believe in that person. And I think it's just amazing, because it just spirals in such a positive way when you really switch that mindset. And it's something I talk about all the time at No Quit Living, is it's 1 degree to your greatness, or 1 degree from that next business idea. And a lot of times it's just one little tweak or one little change has a huge and amazingly positive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Well, man, you and I are definitely kindred brothers. We think so much alike, and we could continue this conversation for the rest of the day. And I know you said you don't have anything else coming up, but man, we don't want this to go too long, because people are going to shut us out after a while, because we're just going to sit here and have an amazing conversation. But at this point, I'd like to pay it forward to our abundant leaders. You ready to do that?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So share with Men of Abundance 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
So the 1 to 3 actionable steps is pretty simple, and I've asked a similar question, is I think the first and the best thing that I recommend to people is change the way you start your day. And the reason I say that is so many within the last 2 months have talked about, in some way, shape, or form, the common theme has been how you start your day is how you win your day. And I think that's one thing that's really important. The other thing I would recommend, and it's pretty simple, and it maybe sounds a little bit old school, but is to read more than you play with electronics, to read more than you spend time on Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook. And then the other thing I would say, the third call to action, which I actually share and talk about quite often, is pick up the phone today and just call a friend, a family member, a parent, and just say thank you to them and mean it 100% and be grateful in it. And I believe if you do those 3 things each and every day, you're going to have that massive positive mindset change, but also the outlook is going to be just so much more positive, and the opportunities for bigger and better things coming in your life are, I think, going to increase tenfold.
Yeah, that's super powerful. One of those things is something that I've recently been doing over the last couple of months, as a matter of fact, is calling somebody. I don't do it every single day. I do miss a day or two, but I have been making it a habit to pick up the phone and call somebody who I haven't talked to in years, and just simply say, hey, I appreciate you in my life. And really, it's really made a big difference in my personal life, and I know it's touched them as well, because they've reached out to me and said, hey, you called me at the right time. And you never know who you're going to touch.
I think that's awesome. And that's the whole concept of paying it forward with zero expectations, is you make a phone call to that person. And I would say 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 times, whether they say it directly to you or not, is they needed that phone call, and they needed somebody in their life to say, hey, you know what? I just wanted to let you know that I'm in your corner. And I just want to touch real quick on one thing that happened a couple weeks ago to me. Is a dear friend of mine from college. Her name is Chrissy. She called me one night. It was when I was doing some No Quit Living stuff, and I was doing some speaking events and things, and my podcast was getting some success. And she called me out of the blue. I didn't pick up because I was in a meeting, and she left me the nicest voicemail. And basically the gist of what she said is, she said, I just wanted to be that positive force in your corner, and just say, that what you're doing is great, and I'm in your corner, and, I'm proud of you. And she said it, I think, 1 or 2 more times, that she was proud of me. And she said, I just wanted you to hear it, because I think everybody needs to hear it at some point. And I got to tell you that simple phone call and voicemail from her had such a positive impact on me for the next couple of days. And to your comment about you doing it, not every day, but you do it, I know for a fact that you definitely mean it, and you're genuine when you do it. And when those things happen to you, it just literally lights a fire of positivity, where you say, who can I help? And I just want to be a positive influence for somebody else.
Man, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That is really, really important, and I'm glad you shared that, man. What daily habits make the biggest impact in your life?
Two things for me is the gratitude habit of just thanking at least one person every day in a genuine way. And it might not be a phone call. Maybe it's an email or a text or maybe somebody in person. And then the other thing for me is the way I start my day, which is doing some reading. And then I try to get pardon my French, but a kick-ass workout in so I can really get everything going. But those two things really are my thing. And I have a daily 2-pager that I use every morning and every night that focuses me on what I need to do each and every day, focuses on my gratitude, and then makes sure that I hold myself accountable.
Excellent. Wonderful. What are you reading or listening to that you'd recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
Just started Ray Dalio's new book, or not too new book, but it came out, I believe, the end of last year, Principles, which is a awesome book. And for some of your listeners, maybe they don't know who Ray Dalio is. Ray Dalio is he's the most successful hedge fund manager of all time as far as returns and investments. And he basically just breaks it down in that book to some pretty really neat things. And Tony Robbins had, I believe, an hour-long interview with Ray Dalio a couple months back when he talked about the book. And that's something I'm reading. And then one of the things that I just reread, I think for the third or fourth time, is the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, which I think is an awesome book for many people just because of the simplicity of what it stands for.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read and listened to that 10X Rule, as well as Be Obsessed or Be Average, also by Grant Cardone.
I have it at both hard copy, and I also have that audiobook as well.
I do too. There's a few books that I have. I start out with an audio, and if it's good enough and it's something I want to reference and go through and highlight and all that stuff, then I'll get the physical book, and I've got both of those here as well. Principles, that was one that was just recently recommended by Dan Miller of 48 Days to the Work You Love and the 48 Days podcast. He recommended that one as well, so now I'm going to have to go get that one. 2 people have recommended it, so I'm going to put that on my list.
It's a thick book, but it's just full of some great stuff.
Excellent. So what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance?
It's a great question, and I think it might be 2 things. I think the first is the fear of the unknown, and I think the second is it's the fear of getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think many people talk about different things and many people think about different things, whether it's business, personal, professional, relationship. And I think what happens is you just are afraid. And it definitely happened to me too. I was definitely fearful when I launched my podcast and my business, and it definitely got me out of my comfort zone. But John Lee Dumas, he's the host of one of the best podcasts out there, Entrepreneur on Fire. He says something, I'd say probably every 2 or 3 episodes, is all the magic happens outside of your comfort zone. And I think unless you're willing to take a risk and unless you're willing to get outside of your comfort zone, you're going to limit yourself, whether that's physically, mentally, financially. And I just think that's the 2 things that I wish I had known earlier, or I'd had more confidence to get out of my comfort zone. And more importantly is to just kick through fear, because we all have things that we're fearful of, and I think the most successful people out there are the ones that blast through those fears, and more importantly, they step out of their comfort zone.
Man, that is extremely powerful. This has been an amazing day for me, because I know I literally just got off the phone with Lee Cockrell, who I know has been a guest on your show as well, and I bring that up because he said the same exact thing. I'm actually now listening to Creating Magic by Lee, and he said the same exact thing. Magic happens outside the comfort zone. He said that it was almost verbatim the same exact answer, man. And it comes from John. And listen, guys, we're talking about John Lee Dumas. We're talking about Lee Cockrell. We're talking about Chris here saying the same thing, and many others. You got to listen to this stuff, guys. There's patterns here. There's a lot of similarities with all of these highly productive men and women who are saying a lot of the same things. You're listening. Now you got to take action, and you got to do some of this stuff. Implement it somehow in your life.
I love it. I love the action word.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does living a life of abundance mean to you, Chris?
I'm going to steal your 4 F's, and I think not steal them per se, but I'm going to borrow them for a minute. I think living an abundant life and living in abundance is and it's kind of my definition of success. It's doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want. And notice nowhere in that statement did I talk about a specific dollar amount or a house that's worth X amount or a specific car that's worth or this vacation spot. Now, I want to be clear, is there's nothing wrong with having goals. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have your dream house or take that dream vacation or buying the car of your dreams. I don't want to make anybody think that that's not important, nor should you not have goals. But I think for me, the abundant component and the abundance definition is being able to do what I want, where I want, when I want, and with who I want, but most importantly, for as long as I want. And I think that just, to me, defines abundance perfectly, because if and when you have that or you get close to that, I think you're going to really enjoy life more so than before that. And I think it's good to always aim for that. And in no way have I hopefully hit my ceiling, but I'm always driven to be the best version of myself. And to me, that's another component of abundance, is just never ceasing to be the best version of yourself, whether you're a parent, a father, a son, daughter. It doesn't matter where you are in life, is just always get up every single day and try to make the best out of it and try to be better than you were yesterday.
Man, absolutely, 100% agree. We're going to close this up, brother. Before we do, what did we not talk about that you want to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation today?
Just one thing that you briefly touched on is one of the things we focus on with No Quit Living is the accountability and self-accountability concept. And we identify the 3 A's of accountability, which are action, attitude, and application. And I was speaking at an event in early January, and somebody asked me, they said, Chris, what if you could only take one of those 3 A's, which one would it be? And I answer this question every single time the exact same way, is action. And you said action before. And Jeff Woods, who is the host of the One Thing podcast, who was on my show, a great interview, amazing guy, amazing show. He said something that I've repeated probably 100 plus times. Is he said, you can take the best information, the best coaches, the best training, and if you put little to no action behind it, you're going to yield little to no results, as opposed to if you take average information, an average coach, an average mentor, and if you put an inordinate amount of massive action, you're going to be that much more successful. So for your listeners that are out there that are thinking about maybe a business, changing something in their life, a relationship, whatever it is, don't think about it. Do something and take action.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Jeff is an amazing dude, man. He was one of the earliest guests on my show as well. And then I had Jay Pepizan on a couple shows later, and they played a practical joke on me. Because they work just down the office from Gary Keller. They all work in the same building, and you got to listen to that episode with Jay, episode 45, where they played a practical joke on me. I shared it at the end, a kind of an Easter egg type of thing. But yeah, absolutely, man, just amazing guys.
No, I definitely will have to go back and listen to that. I don't know Jay other than reading his books and things, but the whole One Thing company and concept is amazing, and there's no reason why, if anybody has a question of the number one real estate company in the world, which happens to be Keller Williams, if they've read the book or listened to the show, you'll know why.
Yeah, and for those of you who are, just to reference, Jeff Woods was also originally the mentee. He had the podcast The Mentee, who he's handed over, which is a pretty cool concept how he's doing that, because he interviewed several other folks to come on to be the next mentee or the mentor, and then it's called the Mentee podcast, and then he went on to be the VP of the One Thing team, which is really cool, and that they're all working together, a dynamic team that they have over there.
Just to add one thing on that before we wrap up, is Jeff said something really interesting to me. Is he asked me a question, if people say, how can I help you or what can I help you with? And everybody always answers pretty generally is, I need a couple more clients, or I'd like to get an introduction to this company. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what Jeff does is then Jeff flipped the switch on me and he said, Chris, what is the one thing right now today that I could help you with the most? And it's something I've been trying to do every single day, is asking myself that question, whether it's 6 a.m. or 10 o'clock and I'm at the office, is, Chris, what's the number one thing? What is the most important thing you need to do right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And guys, same thing. Ask yourself that question, whether it's with your relationships, with your job, with your kids, and or with your business, if that applies. That one thing, that's what you need to be working on. and follow one course until success. Another JLD term there.
Focus.
Focus. Love it, man. Brother, it's been a great conversation, as I knew it would, just like before round 2, even better. And, just go out and live your life of abundance and keep paying it forward, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Aloha. All right, guys, I think there was more than enough said in that conversation. Now, go out and live your life of abundance and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.